Hey guys, this is Christian from the Terran Brothers. Today I'm going to bring you another one of my own games. It's going to be a Terran versus Protoss on the map Syrian Crater. And like last time, I think we'll start out by talking about the map. The map has a single Xel'Naga tower right here in the middle. And in our particular positions, it's not that important because, well, a lot of our pushes are going to be coming down this ramp and moving just outside the range of the Xel'Naga tower's vision. You might be able to catch a little bit of a push coming out using the Xel'Naga tower, but generally these positions it's not much of a big deal. My own build order will be the exact same as my last video. So the standard Terran versus Protoss opening build order, supply depot at 10, barracks at 12, refinery at 13 or 14. I believe I got it on 14 this time. And my opponent will be doing the standard opener against Terran. Neither of us were playing random or anything. I think he was slightly favored, but he turned out to be a silver player just like myself. I would like to talk about the feedback that I got on my last video. I heard I had a couple minor sound problems, and I'm doing my best to fix them. Turned off the fan in my room, and I've worked on the sound quality of my own mic and just done my best to make it work. If any of you new players want to play, or just have someone answer your questions, well, I'm definitely the person to ask. And if you have more specific questions, you should probably check out Wikipedia, which is Wikipedia for StarCraft. It's community based and it's free, and it's a really good tool to use. So let's get to my game. My opponent just scouted me out. I believe he's going to stop his probe because he has spotted my worker or one of my buildings. Yep. I am going to have a bit of a fail scout here. I think I'm going to pull my worker away before he can actually see anything. Yep, I don't believe I spotted anything. No, my worker was... The pylon must have been right there, and I must have missed it, which means that my worker is now going to scout all the other bases before finally coming back and realizing that my opponent spawned right here. I'm going to be going for a faster expansion than last game, and my opponent is going to go for some very interesting warp prism play that I think would be great for some new players to take a look at and think about the benefits and the downsides. Also, you're going to see some basic micromanagement. Micromanagement is the basic control of your units, specifically in battles or doing things like worker splits and stuff. My opponent's going to have some problems there, and that's definitely going to be part of him losing the game. Spoilers, I guess. But yeah, I'm going to open up with one barracks for now. I'm going to come out with another barracks, then a third, and an expansion. I feel pretty safe on this map just because of the way Terran can control the entrances to the natural. Here you've got to bust down rocks before you can come out this side, and in general the Protoss player wants to split up the forces, and it's pretty hard here considering there's a back entrance and as well as such a wide ramp. This also makes it harder for Protoss to defend this big ramp, but here in here it's very easy for Protoss to defend with right amount of force fields and unit positioning. He does come out with a Zealot first, which is not necessarily a good idea in Terran versus Protoss because Zealots can be kited by Marines and Marauders. Kiting is when you shoot at a unit and then run away from it before it can get to you, and you continue and you repeat that process until the unit dies. My SCV is going to realize his mistake from earlier, come in here. I'm going to see gateways and Samurais core, everything I would expect. I see these chrono boosting workers, which kind of tells me his skill level. If I see that the chrono boost is completely full, I'm either guessing he's bad at the game or has some kind of special strategy planned. So yep, there's not going to be too much early game aggression, apart from his warp prism play, which we'll discuss later on. This does look like a 3-gate robo, which is quite standard for beating any early game Marine Marauder pushes by Terran players. Notice how I've kind of made a bit of a concave here with my units. I've put some of them on hold position, which means that if any units try to come up this ramp and my guys start shooting at them, they're not going to chase them down. They're just going to stay right where they are, so they don't get kited by stalkers. Same way I explained how the Zealot gets kited earlier. His robotics facility is almost done. I have an engineering bay on the way to get those early upgrades. Early upgrades are a great idea for going heavy bio because it'll benefit your entire army. If you have heavy numbers of Marines and Marauders, then why not get those upgrades if it affects the bulk of your army? Also, I'm about to start building my expansion. The reason I'm not building it here is simply because it's harder to find and it's safer. He can't shoot at it unless he's right about here or somehow gets vision of the high ground. And I can convert it to an orbital here in complete safety and make sure I'm perfectly safe to expand. Hopefully behind a bit of a pressure or an attack or something like that. Generally that's a good idea. If you look at my last video, I expanded behind my attacks every time. He's going to come out with an observer now, and this observer will be as effective as any observer in lower levels, seeing everything without me noticing a thing. He's going to see that I'm just going plain old Marine Marauder. This is what's to be expected if you're a Protoss player. And he's going to come out with a Warp Prism. Now let's talk about Warp Prisms for new players that don't understand them. Warp Prisms are essentially a troop transport and a mobile pylon, one of these things, combined into one. Pylons provide a power field, essentially, or an energy field that allows units to be warped in if you have researched the warp gate upgrade. And if you convert the Warp Prism into phasing mode, right here, you can warp in essentially unlimited units under it as long as you have the resources for them, as well as the gateways. Also, you can carry along units and just drop them down if you don't want to wait for the warp in, or if you're bringing mechanized units like Immortals and Colossi that cannot be warped in and have to be transported. The professional player White Raw made Warp Prism very popular lately. Heavy gateway and Warp Prism can really mess with your opponent if you're attacking in multiple places at once. I haven't seen this observer yet, although I was probably expecting one. I have my units positioned right here to protect him from really scouting my expansion. But with the observer, he's gonna spot it. I wasn't expecting any early aggression against myself, especially with this heavy bio. If he scouts that, he's just gonna say to himself, "I need to tech up. I need to expand. Now's definitely not the time to attack." Sorry I missed that, but he warped in a single Zealot right here, and the Zealot didn't do anything. It just stood there for a couple seconds before I noticed it, and I came in and killed it before it could do any damage. That's not the most cost-effective way to use your Warp Prism. In fact, you want to get a bit closer to the mineral line if you want to do economic damage. This Warp Prism should probably have been right here instead of warping in units over here. This also means that my army has to move further and move through all this mess of buildings before it can help. So yeah, that's just some Silver League Warp Prism usage right there. My Marines cannot shoot it down, especially since it had that HP and shields buff in the last patch. Let's take a look at what my opponent is doing. He actually has a very small army, and I'm confident that if I pushed out with this army and he didn't have good force fields, I could probably win right now. He's coming out with a lot more Immortals and a robotics bay, which allows him to build Colossi. That is definitely the appropriate counter to what I have right now, but once again, just like I mentioned in my last video, there need to be more gateway units like Zealots and Stalkers. Let's talk about this expansion timing right now. Mine's already ready to go, building workers, and most importantly, dropping mules. What mules do, you can call them in using the orbital command, which is an upgraded version of the command center. Mules give you essentially a 200 mineral boost for the energy. It counts as 6 workers for the 90 seconds it's alive. and you can call them in quite frequently if you don't spend your energy on scans or supply drops. And I think I only scanned once this game. Notice, since I didn't want any more warp prisms coming in, I placed missile turrets right here to shoot them down. Maybe I could have saved the money for this one, but I just wanted to make sure that there were no Dark Templar coming in or large amounts of Zealots. I just wanted to scare him away from doing any more warp prism play. Notice my bio ball is getting a bit bigger while his army is not. It looks pretty wimpy actually. The only thing that I might be scared of are these two immortals. He's just now starting his forge while I have +1 attack finished and +1 armor on the way. I would consider myself ahead this game, but that sentry with force fields and guardian shields could turn the tide of the battle if I choose to attack right now. His expansion is going to be very delayed and without mules and a much lower worker count. If you look here, he has 27 workers. I have 41 and 2 mules. That's a large economic difference if you look at the mineral income. Could be collecting more gas, but for a bio ball, you don't need that much gas. He's keeping his minerals and gas lower than I am right now, telling me that he's a decent player. I should be happy that I beat him. It wasn't exactly a blowout, but I mean, often I'll come across players that really just either cannon rush or six pool and don't know what they're doing, don't understand the game well enough to actually play a game that's longer than 10 minutes. I'm just starting to work on my higher tech now, getting a starport out and a reactor on the factory so that as soon as the starport's done, I can lift up the factory, and drop the starport next to the reactor so I can build 2 dropships at once. The reason I'm building dropships is because I haven't scouted anything that would lead me to believe he's going heavy Colossi, when in fact he is. So that could be considered a bit of a mistake on my part. His first Colossus is out. He has 3 Immortals, but once again, the lack of gateway units is severely going to hurt him if it does come down to an engagement. I'm now coming down with more barracks since my second base economy has picked up. I'm almost mined out here since I've been producing workers this whole game. The difference of workers is actually growing. It's at 29 to 53 workers. Just now getting my starport on the reactor. Some warpins coming in for some stalkers on his part, which is good. His +1 weapons is almost done, and he has a second Colossus almost done. He's getting all the information he needs from this little observer right here. You can see the entirety of my army, my expansion, and likely any tech that comes down my ramp. So he's doing everything right, except maybe for that warp prism attack and the delayed expansion. Protoss want to get their expansion out probably earlier than Terran in most cases, unless you are going for heavy early pushes or something like that. 2 more gateways to allow for more production. Now that he has a second base up. That's similar to what I'm doing, adding 3 barracks. I should be starting my upgrade, my weapons upgrade level 2 as soon as possible. Also should be calling down mules. But these little slips in macro are the mark of a Terran player. Now, let's talk about the scouting factory for a second. Generally, in Terran versus Protoss, in all leagues, the factory isn't used to produce units. It's used to allow for the construction of the starport, which is then used to produce units. The factory, because of its high HP and its ability to fly around, even if it is slowly, makes it a great scout. So the factory can come on in here, fly around, and see absolutely everything going on. And it can last for some time because it has such high HP, as well as armor, since it's a building. So yeah, unless the player is going for a 1-1-1 build, which is a Terran pseudo all-in build that includes 1 barracks, 1 factory, and 1 starport, where you get banshees and siege tanks out, and you attack with SCVs as well, then generally the factory will be used as a scout. You don't see this in any other matchup really. So I generally think this is a good idea for a Terran player to do against Protoss, especially on these close positions where the factory doesn't take as long to get over. Notice I'm getting my third base up. He has not scouted this. I do have the Zelnaga tower just in case. His army is up to 2 Colossus, 3 Immortals, getting some Zealots, and now the gateway's just finished and the third Colossus popped. He obviously sees this factory flying around. I did see that Colossus, and I did see this Robotics Bay, and this is when I really start to get excited. All the Stalkers are right here taking out this factory. None of these things can attack air except for the Sentry, which does minimal damage. He's taken everything that can attack air and focused it on the factory. I notice this and I say it's time to move in. With these medevacs, I see that his Colossi are unguarded. He does spot my army, however, so he's going to be pulling his Stalkers back. But as you see here, it's too late. The Colossi are totally vulnerable. They do not have enough supporting units like Zealots and Stalkers. The Sentry isn't doing much yet, and my superior numbers, and as well as my upgrade advantage, he only has an attack upgrade done. His level 1 armor has just started, while my level 2 weapons has just started. Everything about this situation is bad for him. Everything about this situation is good for me. And let's just watch how the fight goes down. I do try to prioritize, getting down the Colossi. The Stalkers finally come in, but it's far too late. I did mess up my pathing here, my command. I was on move command for a brief amount of time. But now I'm focusing down the Colossi. They go down almost immediately. And at this point, I was not sure if my forces would defeat his. But with the upgrade advantage and the healing power of the medevacs, as well as more reinforcements streaming in, idle production right now, but that's about to change, I hope. A third base ready, about to be converted into a planetary fortress. Everything's looking good. I obviously got a full scout of his base, but oh, did I just skip back? Sorry about that. Give me just a second. Alright, yep, we're back here. Yeah, but the full scout of his base doesn't really matter. This engagement is so one-sided that it's just going to cost him the game. Notice he has extremely low saturation of workers compared to my extremely high amount of workers. That's going to give me a really strong income boost. If you look at the income, there's virtually no way he can come back from this game. Of course, as a turn player, you're always afraid of a Dark Templar coming in, or Void Rays, or carriers hidden somewhere, especially in the lower levels. But let's talk about what my army is going to do now. After I come out on top of that engagement, I know the only thing that could possibly stop me now are more Colossi. So I'm immediately going to go for the Robotics Bay that I scouted the position of earlier with this factory, and I'm going to snipe it down as soon as possible. So yeah, it's while I could be focusing it down a little bit better, it's important that that Colossus, which was halfway done, did not come out. He's trying a couple desperate warp-ins, but at this point, it's pretty much over. I have an army in the middle of his base. I've got more stuff on the way. I've got a third base converting into a planetary fortress. These medevacs could be helping out. I'm going to go after the Twilight Council because that's a bit of a hint at the possibility of a Dark Shrine, which could lead to Dark Templar, and while that wouldn't kill me, it would put me in a bad spot if I wasn't paying attention. Last couple Stalkers coming in, but when that Twilight Council goes down, his tech becomes so limited that the game is essentially over. I don't think his +1 armor is going to finish. But yeah, that I think that goes to show that the Derp Magnet I mentioned earlier really works. For some reason, the game just restarted, so apologize about that. yeah, this factory essentially won the game. Otherwise, I don't think I would have needed to attack. I would have scouted the Colossi, would have gotten some Vikings out using my starport, would have gotten some weapon upgrades out for my ships right here, and I would have just rolled them over with a bigger army later on in the game, knowing I was ahead in expansions of workers by far. So yeah, this was a fun game. It's always good to beat Protoss. So I think that's my easiest matchup nowadays. Okay, that's some really bad micro on my part. These units could be killing that so much faster if they were all doing what they're supposed to be doing. Anyways, guys, sorry about the glitches I had during this video. It's late, so I don't want to recast this. I'm sorry. I hope you enjoyed. I hope the sound quality is better. Once again, if you have any questions at all, if you want to practice together, if you have any tips for me, that'd be great. So yeah, thank you. Please like the video if you did enjoy it. Subscribe to my channel if you want to hear more from me. Thanks. See ya.